Hi there, everybody. My name is Christian Gilbert. I'm a speech and communication instructor. And despite the series of the workshops that we're in, I think I'm as interested as I am in tech. I'm kind of also a tech dinosaur that even when we're in face-to-face classes, I like the chalkboard rooms even more than the whiteboard rooms. And so since we've all had to go online, kind of as an act of defiance, I've been learning more and more about tech to try to reclaim as much of like the old immersive things that we used to do in class, like having a whiteboard. So that's kind of my journey into tech. Yeah. But thanks very much for coming and thanks for having me, Aaron. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. This session is about converting your phone to make it a webcam to a whiteboard in 3 steps. So I'm going to do the first step because it's the easiest and it only takes a couple of minutes. And then Chris is going to do the majority of the workshop because he is really the one that has the tech savvy knowledge. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you folks. And I just have a real quick PowerPoint to kind of share. So the first thing we're going to be talking about, just starting from the very beginning, is how to make your phone, how to turn it into a webcam for yourself. Okay, so step 1 in turning your phone into a webcam, if I can do it, you can definitely do it. So the first step is you just go into your computer, your laptop, and just search for IVCam. This is the program. There's tons of programs out there. IVCam is the one that Chris uses. I've also have used Arian before, and Arian can help with, I think, PCs and Macs. I think IVCam kind of focuses more on PCs, but Chris can verify that for us. And then there's another one, but there's tons of different programs that you can use, and they all pretty much operate the same way in terms of how to connect your phone with your computer so that your phone becomes that remote camera that you can take anywhere within your Wi-Fi area. So the second step is just to download the program to your computer. So just look for that download button. And so for IVCam, this is where you would download it for Windows. The third step is you're just going to follow the regular download instructions. So it'll be prompting you, and it'll tell you where it's going to create the files, and then you simply click on install. Next, what you're going to do is once it's installed into your laptop or your computer, the next thing you're going to want to do is download that exact same IVCam webcam application onto your phone. So that way the two will be able to talk with one another. So you'll go into your app store, look for IVCam webcam, and it is free. And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about all the research that Chris has done, is that he's been very resourceful in looking for free resources so that it's not hard on our pocketbooks. So go ahead and find that application on your phone and then just download it to your phone. So as you can see, I have a lot of stuff on. This is a picture of my own iPhone, so I have a lot of stuff on there, but that's the icon. Once it's installed onto your phone for free, then you'll see that icon. And once you do that, you'll already have the program on your laptop. I use a laptop. It'll already be there. You click on the IVCam, and then you'll be able to create your webcam. And you see my messy house, but again, voila, you're connected, and it's really cool. I think the main thing is that both your laptop, your computer, as well as your iPhone need to be on the same Wi-Fi network. So I don't know how you can be from one another. But again, those types of questions, you know, Chris done tons of research. He'll be able to answer those things. And we also have Tiffany Akiyama, who is a new educational or instructional technologist with us. So she has a lot of experience too. So we have some very tech savvy people here that'll be able to provide us with more questions as we go along. The last thing I want to say is that sometimes doing this type of tech, and this is new for so many of us, can get really overwhelming. And I think that's to be expected. So we will be recording this session so that, you know, you can always go back and rewatch it if you want to, as well as we do have, you know, help available. So Chris has been really good in terms of offering his help. So if you run into any snags or issues, even after this session, then by all means, he's available. I'll do my best. We have wonderful people at EMC as well who'll be able to help. Okay, so with that said, that's step one in converting your phone to become a webcam to a whiteboard. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris now, and he'll take you through the two other more important steps. So Chris, take it away.
All right, well, thanks so much, Aaron. I appreciate you doing that intro for us. So ultimately, there's three big steps, and what Aaron covered for you was the first step. And what I want to do is I want to show you what the end product is that you would end up with in your own classrooms with your students. So one of the things that I try to avoid as much as possible for myself is screen sharing, not because it's inherently bad, but because I like to make sure that I can always see the faces of my students and I can always see the chat and engage with them. And the moment I hit screen share, I find that really I'm just looking at my own slides or something like that. And it becomes a very insulated experience. I'm largely just kind of talking to an empty room and I can't engage my students until after I'm done teaching. So I thought, well, how do I take something like a slide or a whiteboard and throw that into my webcam, which basically required me to learn what professional video game streamers do and what people do in TV, of how they create a little studio with just their cameras. And so here's the final product that you'd end up with. You could be there in your home with your trusty dry erase pen like we used to use nostalgically back in the day. And then the moment it's time to whip out the whiteboard, all you would do is cut the camera to your whiteboard. And here it is. So exactly what Aaron showed you allows me to turn my phone right here into a little whiteboard camera. And so as long as you download the IVCam app or Irian if you're using a Mac, then the first step is completely done. You can follow those instructions and you've got yourself a camera out of your smartphone. Quick note about how come it is exactly that I prefer to use IVCam. So I've been using IVCam because one of the features to me that ends up being really important is that IVCam will turn your screen black, which means that you're not going to get burned in pixels in your phone. Irian, to its credit, does reduce greatly the brightness of your screen, but it doesn't turn it completely off. And I haven't been using like a spare phone. I've been using my actual phone, so I didn't want to risk anything happening to the screen. That said, after a couple of weeks, IVCam did ask me to pay if I wanted to output high definition resolution. And I decided it was okay. It charged about $9. So I paid about $9 one time to keep HD resolution. But if you really don't want to and you're okay with the trade-off of having kind of a really dim screen, then I can recommend Irian, and that'll work on PC and on Mac. But that's just my own personal app choice and how come. So that's the first step. What I want to do now is, before I start overwhelming with a bunch of technical jargon, is I want to give everybody a step-by-step list of what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to give you all a Google Doc in the chat. Feel free to look at this now if you like, or later on if you just want to be present with us here in the moment. But there is a link to the Google Doc. And when we tested this out earlier, it looks like if you click it, it doesn't work. But if you copy and paste it into your browser, it might work. But there's a little PDF of the steps. So you can look at it now or later, whatever you prefer. But there's a list of everything we're going to be doing. And you'll notice that step one is pretty quick. Install the IVCam app. Step two is going to be pretty long, because step two is going to be setting up OBS Studio. So OBS Studio is the primary software that makes all the magic work. In the same way that if you're writing a paper or a book, you got to use a word processor. If you're making presentations, you got to use presentation software. And if we are presenting live online, then really OBS is the standard kind of software, some kind of studio software. And this is what allows me to basically change between two cameras in my webcam. I'm going to show you exactly how to set up this kind of webcam switcher. And then once I've walked you through the process, what I want to do is I'll actually give you a tutorial that you can use and literally click through every step you see me do. So I think it's one thing to be able to see it happen. It's another thing to do it yourself. So I'm going to have you walk through it yourself too, even without having to install OBS. So what I have to do is something a little bit spooky, is I'm going to get rid of my own current setup right now. So you're going to see me build it from scratch in front of you. So you know how easy it is to do. And it only takes a few minutes. So let me jump into my OBS. And the moment I do this, you're probably going to see me disappear because I'm starting off from a completely blank slate. Okay, I'll come back with my audio in just a second. Bye-bye. Okay, so you should be able to hear me now, yeah? All right, perfect. Okay, so this is the radio show. And I'm going to do the classic screen sharing here for you to show you exactly what it is that I'm doing in OBS. And voila, here we are. So now you're inside of OBS. Once you've installed the software, this is what you're going to see. This big black rectangle is everything that's going to be output to your webcam. So if you look at that PDF that I sent, you'll see that there's a couple of things to install on your computer after you've installed the app on your phone. On your computer, what you're going to need is OBS Studio, but also a plugin. And that plugin is a virtual camera plugin, because that's what's going to trick your computer into thinking that OBS is your webcam, even though it's not. Now, at the moment, there is a beta version of OBS that includes a virtual cam without a plugin, but I haven't recommended that yet because it's a beta and I haven't had the chance to test it extensively. But I have been working with this for several months and I can recommend it. So at least for the moment, I'd recommend OBS Studio and a virtual camera plugin. And this is what you end up with. So the first thing that you do is you go up here to Tools and you click on Virtual Cam. And then to activate it, I've already done that because you saw me using it earlier. You click on Auto Start and then Start. And now every time OBS opens up, effectively, your camera has a choice between your actual integrated webcam or the OBS camera, everything that shows up in this black rectangle. So if you did that first step of enabling the virtual camera and you did nothing else, every time that you spoke, your webcam would be this big black rectangle. So let's add our beautiful faces to it. The first thing we'll do is down here under the sources box, we're going to click on the add button. And we can add anything that we want to become our camera. For our purposes, we're going to choose a video capture device. Fancy word for a camera. And I'll click OK. Now I can choose between all these different video capture devices. You can tell I've been messing around a lot over summer because I have all these different camera options. For most of us, we'll only have the option of integrated webcam. So you can click on integrated webcam. This is the camera up here that I actually prefer to use. So I'm going to click on that one. There we go. So now we're here. Now my mouth and my audio will probably be out of sync, but that's just because you're seeing OBS and it's not synchronized with my audio. Anyway, I'm going to close this down. I'll click OK. And you can see that's too big. I don't want my face that big. My face is all right, but it's not that great. So I'm going to shrink it down a little bit to make sure that it fits the rectangle of my webcam. So if I wanted to, I shouldn't, but if I wanted to, I could make my face look itty bitty like this. In fact, you're probably seeing this in my actual Zoom camera because I didn't change my Zoom camera. It's still my OBS virtual camera. So this is exactly what it would look like. If I wanted to be, I could be itty bitty living space. But instead, what I'll do is I'm going to drag these red handlebars out to fit roughly the frame. That's perfect. There we go. So I've done all this work just to put myself on the webcam. Big deal, right? That's the same place where we started. So what we really want to do is we want to add our whiteboard, or we want to add our phone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to the scenes box. And the scenes box allows me to add a completely different collection of inputs. I'm going to click OK. Now we have scene 2. If I click scene 1, there I am again. That's where I put my webcam. But I'm going to be working on scene 2 because that's where I want to put my phone camera. So I'm going to go over here to the sources box. Every scene can have as many sources as you like. I'm going to add a source, and I'm going to go to video capture device, fancy word for camera, and I'm going to click OK. Now from this drop-down list, you can see already, this feed over here is E2eSoft IV Cam. That's my phone. It's right here. I can wiggle it around. Yeah, hello. So since I know that's the correct camera, I can click OK. Now, if on your end you decide you want to use Irion, then that will show up as Irion Webcam. But it's the exact same process in OBS. So you click Irion Webcam if that's for you. I'm going to click on IV Cam and I'll click OK. And same thing here. It doesn't quite fill the frame in the way that I would like. So I'm going to take this red handlebar. I'm going to drag it out like this. Boom, and now it fits. But I do have a lot of behind the scenes noise here on the sides that I don't necessarily want showing up in my webcam. So what I can do is I can actually expand this video feed larger than the frame of my webcam. So now I'm essentially cropping in and zooming to whatever part I want to show up on my webcam. There we go. So I'm okay with that. Maybe I'll crop in just a little bit more just to get rid of some of the shine on the edges there. Boom, there we go. That's not bad. So now what we have are two scenes in OBS. Scene 2 shows my phone, and scene 1 shows my highly tolerable face. All I want to be able to do now is to switch between these two at will. So how do I pick and choose which one is showing up when I'm in a Zoom class? To do that, we're going to enable some hotkeys. To change the hotkeys, I'm going to click File and Settings. And there's an entire section in Settings just for hotkeys. When I click on that, I'll scroll down here and you can see Scene and Scene 2. Remember, Scene is my face and Scene 2 is my phone. So I'm going to click on this top bar here, and whatever buttons I press into here are going to become my hotkeys that tell OBS to switch to my face. So I'm going to make this hotkey Control-Shift-1. Now, anytime I hit Control-Shift-1, OBS is going to switch to my actual camera. For scene 2, I want to choose a different hotkey, so I'm going to click on that box and hit Control-Shift-2. So now, anytime that I hit Control-Shift-2, my camera will cut to my phone. I'll click Apply, I'll click OK, and now just to test it out, to see what it looks like in action, I'm going to hit Control-Shift-1 and voila, there we go, I'm back. If I ever want to cut to my phone, Control-Shift-2 and phone it is. There we go. So now we have the hotkeys enabled. All right.
Hey, Chris,
Yeah.
can we have a question. So a question came in, can we just make it like a space bar click? Does it have to be like a Control Shift something, or could it be like Control-1 or a space bar click?
Oh, that's a great question. And thanks for letting me know. I don't think I was able to see chat in here during my screen sharing. You can make it anything you want, but you want to make sure it's not a button that you're going to end up pressing in the natural course of teaching your class. Right, so if I'm typing something in the chat, if I say hi class and the space between hi and class gets pressed, then my camera is going to switch even when I'm in Zoom. So I want to watch out for that. Yeah. It doesn't have to be Control-Shift though. If there's any kind of button that you know you're not going to be using, that's fine. It could be a Control-1 or a Control-2, as long as it doesn't affect any other program that you're using. Good question.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I'll stop sharing here for a moment, and let's see, it's probably on, there we go, it's on the webcam. So what I want to do is I want to give everyone in this room a chance to try this out for yourself. I don't want you to just watch this and think that you have to memorize all these steps, but I also don't want you to have to wait to get hands-on until you've already installed all of these different programs. So instead what I've done is I've given you a little tutorial right here. I'll throw it in chat for you. And if you click on that link, this is going to take you to an actual click-by-click walkthrough of every single step of what it would look like on your end. So give it a try. It'll only take about 3 minutes or so, but it'll give you a feel for exactly where to click and when in OBS. So give everyone about 3 or 4 minutes. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to ask away. Oh, great. So I got a question in chat here about how to add this camera to Zoom. This will actually show up in the tutorial that you're all working on at the moment. It'll be the very last step. But Zoom, you can choose what camera you want to use for yourself. And then instead of choosing your integrated webcam, you would choose the OBS virtual cam. And that's how Zoom would know to look at OBS. Good question there in the chat. And then once you're done with the tutorial, you can come back into Zoom and you can click on the reactions face at the bottom of your toolbar, and you can click a little digital thumbs up that'll show up over your camera, just so we have an idea of about where everyone's at. No rush, take your time.
That was very cool, Chris. That was a cool tutorial.
Right on, glad you like it. Glad it's helpful. All right, thanks, Blanca. I see the thumbs up. Thanks, Darcy. Oh, hey, Darcy. Great picture.
Yeah, we might need another workshop on how to make those LORAD tutorials. That was great.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to learn it myself at Tech It Out Day. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah, so I can't take credit.
You know, I didn't get a tutorial. All I got was a blank page on mine. I didn't see the tutorial. Just clicking on that link, http://ior.ad, right?
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Let me try a longer link. I gave you a condensed URL. So Rich, here's another one. I'll throw this into the chat here for you. You can try that one. That's the non-condensed URL. Maybe that'll work for you. All right,
And
thanks.
sometimes, Rich, you can copy and paste it. If it doesn't work, if you click on it, maybe just copy and paste it to your browser.
All right, thanks, Lexer. I see the thumbs up. So it looks like a little over half of us are done with the tutorial. So I imagine we're either done or we're probably finishing up at the moment. Perfect. Thanks, Meredith. Thanks, Camden. All right. So if you're not totally done yet, then you can always come back to this and you can complete it whenever you like. And you can always replay it as many times as you like. Whenever you want to, you can also return to this tutorial and just look at it as a list of steps too, if you don't want to go through everything. On the very first page before you start the tutorial, it'll give you a few options for how you want to view it. So let's talk about the next steps then. Boom. What we've done now is we've connected our phone to our computer using IVCam or using Irion, if that's what you prefer. We've gone into OBS and we've created a scene for our face and we've created a scene for our phone and we've created hotkeys that allow us to switch between them. Bingo. If you've completed the tutorial, then you've also seen the extra step where you've been able to tell Zoom to use OBS as your camera instead of your built-in webcam. So now, what about the hardware? What about mounting your phone in real time? Well, instead of actually physically holding your phone the entire time over a whiteboard or something, it'd be nice to be able to mount it and set it and forget it. Now, when I first started looking around for options like this, I saw that many professional camera tripods will have a little pointer down in the bottom where you can mount a camera pointing straight down. Well, I didn't have any of those. So I thought, what else can I do? And I found that there are actual holders built for this very purpose, where you can attach a little overhanging arm that clamps onto your desk. Sometimes it clamps onto both sides of the desk to create a big upside down U that you can dangle a camera from and even move it back and forth. And a lot of these cost anywhere from $100 to $200. And I thought, I'd rather not do that. So instead, I'd like to share with you the very expensive, fancy, and genius trick that took so much IQ, doesn't take very much IQ. Here's what I'm using. I'm just going to show you with my phone camera, and you're going to laugh at how silly this is. Here we go. So here's the phone camera. This is what I'm using. A couple of rulers stuck into a box. That's my fancy $200 setup. I didn't want to buy something super expensive and custom built. I just thought, nope, as long as it works, there we go. It's like they say, if it's stupid and it works, it ain't stupid. So there we go. Now, it doesn't have to be a giant box like that. If you wanted to, the way that I actually got the idea for this was a YouTube video that didn't use a giant box and yardsticks. They just used pencils to hold the phone, and they jammed the pencils into a stack of books. And I've actually got the link to that video for you in that PDF that I shared after step 3. So however high you want your phone to be, you just stack that many books, and wherever you want the phone to be at, boom, that's where you jam the pencils, and you're done. Yeah. Jordan is saying, my laptop is set up on an upside down cooler. Perfect. Yeah, exactly. None of this stuff has to be very fancy. None of it at all. The setup that you're looking at, I'm working with right now is I got my laptop kind of jammed on some kind of briefcase box looking thing that was just lying around too. Yeah. Doesn't matter what you use. If it works, it works. So far, I've really just been using it for handwriting and things, but maybe I'm not thinking outside the box enough. I imagine that you folks can come up with all kinds of other ideas. There's no reason why you can't mount the phone horizontally and you have a dual camera setup like the news, in case it helps to have like a wide angle shot if you're going to show something physical, and then you can crop back to your face to just talk to the students. Let's see, Sean's asking, how do you prevent sagging? Great question. I don't. Nope. Here we go. Okay, so here's the setup with the rulers. Right, that's what it looks like. And now what actually happens when I put the phone on is it will sag like this. So it's not actually straight in practice. It kind of hangs down, but it doesn't really matter because once it sags down, it just stops at that point. And if that's where it stops, then hey, that's the height. It doesn't matter. There's not a correct height that it's supposed to be at. If I'm able to make it work, then it works. No, I have yet to have a student look at my whiteboard setup and then say, hey, how come the distance is wrong between us and the whiteboard? No, nobody knows. Sagging means you've got distortion. Oh, okay. This is probably beyond me then, so I don't know the lingo. So distortion. What kind of distortion? That's beyond me.
Well, if I may
What do you-
talk,
Yeah.
it means you're not aiming straight at it. You've got whatever you're filming flat, but your camera is not flat. There's an angle between the two, so you're gonna. It's not gonna-
Terrific.
you'll magnify one side as opposed to the other.
Right, that's a great question. Yeah, so if the whiteboard is flat and the camera itself is slanted, then the depth of field, right, should be slanted also. So we're going to see some things being bigger or some things being blurrier. Turns out that for a phone, the really small focal distance, it all kind of ends up on balance looking about the same. So I haven't really had any issues despite any kind of real sag like that. Yeah. Oh, this is the one I'm using. So we got a link in the chat here. Is this for a, oh, terrific. This is for one of those tension arms that we can use to hang our phones on. Yeah, so if you wanted to, about 30 bucks. Thanks very much for that. So about 30 bucks if you wanted to, you could buy one of these and pop any kind of camera on it. Yeah, you could pop a fancy DSLR or you could pop your phone onto it. Looks like this mount specifically has got one for a phone. Well, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, great tips. Okay. So this is great. We're on a roll. What other kinds of questions, comments, worries, concerns, thoughts, requests do we have? You can unmute. You can throw them in chat. What do we got? All right. Well, if you think of anything, by all means, throw it in chat. Right now, I want to do a question for you folks. We're about halfway through the webinar at the moment. So don't type it just yet, but I'm going to ask you all to think of a number from 1 to 10. 10 means I'm comfortable with this. I got it. I wrapped my head around it. I could probably do this. That's a 10. I could do this. A 1 means nope, I have no idea what we're talking about. Everything may have been in hieroglyphics. I thought this was a ceramics workshop. So go ahead, you can throw the number in chat. 1, totally lost, no idea. 10, yeah, I got this. Go ahead, let's see how everybody's feeling about this. I'm curious. No shame if you're at a 1, and it's not arrogant if you're at a 10. I'm just curious where we're at. Okay, that's a pretty good range. I like it. So it looks like on balance, we're roughly on the more confident end as a group. And if you're not, no problem. The PDF document that I have for you walks you through every single thing, and it has clickable links, and it even brings you back to that walkthrough. So that's really cool that we have a lot of folks on balance a bit more comfortable with this. So just in case you're interested, we could take this one step further if you'd like to. Would you like to see how you can make this fancier? Yeah? Okay. Do I have virtual office hours?
Go for it.
Can.
Go for it.
Yeah, go for it. Perfect. Let's do that. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of things to up the game for our whiteboard. The first thing we're going to do is just to take our current whiteboard and make it look a little bit nicer. The second thing we're going to do is we're going to build a light board. Light boards are normally very impressive looking and also a bit expensive. You have to get some hardware and glass and build wooden frames and things. I'm going to show you how to do that in OBS for free. All right, so let's start off first of all by touching up our current whiteboard. At the moment, this looks kind of like a video feed from a phone. It's not bad, but it's also not exactly a whiteboard. It looks a bit more like a picture. So here's what I can do. Let me actually show you this in screen sharing. That way you can see the exact tools I'm using, and you'll be able to see my webcam doing this as we go. So I'm going to go back to screen sharing. Voila, now we're back. Okay, so if there are any questions in chat, I may miss them. So I'll definitely make sure I come back around after I'm done screen sharing. All right, so here's the camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my video capture device and right click it. So video capture device is, again, my phone. And now I'm going to click on filters. This is where we can start looking spiffy. To make everything look spiffy, I've actually set one up in advance to show you what the before and after is going to look like, but I'm going to rebuild it for you. So this is what the camera feed looks like. I want it to look more like an actual clean whiteboard, like that, with a plain white background and nice dark black text. So how do we build that? Let me get rid of this for you so I can show you how to build it from scratch. Once you right click the video input capture and you click on filters, this is the screen you see. We would go down here to effect filters and click on add. And of all of these wonderful options, we're going to choose color correction. Color correction. Again, none of this is mandatory. This is just if you want to get extra spicy. We'll click OK. Now we have all these wonderful dials that we can mess around with. The ones that I'm going to be primarily interested in are gamma, contrast, and saturation. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this saturation bar and I'm going to bring it all the way down. I don't need any colors on my whiteboard, just black and white. That works for me. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bump up the gamma a little bit. You're going to see it's going to take the brights and make them really bright. Now the white becomes a more uniform white. And now, as long as we have a more uniform white as the background, I can blast this contrast so that there's a big difference between the whites and the blacks. And I just kind of adjust these two as I see fit. Maybe I'll throw in a little bit of extra brightness down here just for good measure too. I want to try to make that white as nice and even as possible. And then I can boost the contrast to make the black stand out against that nice, even white background. That's looking pretty good. So there's no real formula for this. It depends entirely on the settings of your phone, on the ambient light that you have available in your room. So I really couldn't give you any specific numbers to throw in here. I don't even know what they are for myself. I just go in and see what it looks like. If it looks good, it is good. And now I'll close it. And that's what it looks like in practice. That's not too bad. Actually, just for thoroughness' sake, I'll show you the before and after again. So there's after the filters and there's before the filters. I don't know about you, but to me, that makes a pretty nice difference. I quite like that. Looks like a real whiteboard. So if that's something you're interested in doing, if you feel like your comfortability with the basic setup was high enough, you can go ahead, take the extra mile and make it a nice touched up whiteboard there. It's also fun though, because now your hand's gonna look like a spooky black and white hand out of a monster movie. That's fun. All right. So that's the first thing you can do to make it a little bit extra nice. But what questions or clarifications do we have before we go into the Lightboard setup? If you have anything at all, I'd love to hear it so I can address any questions or concerns. No? Looking good? Okay, well, if you think of anything, by all means, throw it in the chat. Here then is how we can make this a Lightboard. All right. Oh, I didn't show you this. When I was giving you the third step about mounting your phone and using rulers, I didn't talk about how to make the whiteboard itself. Now, if you don't have a whiteboard at home, you don't need one. That's okay. You can clearly see I'm not using an actual whiteboard. I'm using just one of these cheap foam core things that you can get at Walmart for like $4 or something. Might even be cheaper than that. It's just dirt cheap, just plain foam core. You don't even need that though. Yeah. So let me stop screen sharing here for a moment. You could use, if you wanted to, before I set up my actual whiteboard, I was just using a white piece of paper on a clipboard. This clipboard is a see-through clipboard. So if I flip it around like this, the back becomes a whiteboard. Nothing wrong with that. So if I put that down here, then you can see, bingo, that works just fine too. I could write on this as if it were my whiteboard. So you don't need the fancy setup that I have here to write on. So I have my foam board, and then on top of that foam board, I put a little sheet of acrylic. And this acrylic sheet that I'm actually directly writing on that I can erase just came from like a picture frame. And we didn't want to use it to cover the picture because it was too much glare. But these things are cheap. Yeah, acrylic, glass, anything. Could even be a see-through clipboard. Now that said, I want to make this workshop as accessible to everyone as humanly possible. Let's say you don't want to go to Walmart to get the foam core board. You don't have a spare sheet of acrylic lying around from a picture frame, and you don't have a clear plastic clipboard either. What else can you do? Well, all credit to my wife, Lucille, for thinking of these. You could take your clipboard and just wrap it in a Ziploc bag. You can see all like the ink and like eraser marks because I've genuinely been using this. It works just fine. No one knows what it's made of. If it does the job, it does the job. So you could even do that. Just a blank sheet of paper on a clipboard, wrap it in a Ziploc bag, you're good to go. That's your whiteboard. So that's the physical setup. All right. So what about the Lightboard? The Lightboard, I'd love to be able to show you what it looks like before setting it up, but I have to build it from scratch because I haven't established it here in OBS for you because right now I'm using the setup that I just built in front of you. So let me walk you through it. We're going to build it together. You're not going to see the end result first. You're going to see the end result, what do you know, at the end. Here's what it looks like now. I've just removed my white foam board and that initial sheet of acrylic. And this is what the phone is looking at right now. Oh, I forgot. I still got my filters on there. How embarrassing. All right, let me get rid of that. Filters. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. I will get rid of the color correction. Be gone. All right, terrific. There we go. Now you can see what the camera's looking at. This time, the camera is looking down at that plastic acrylic that I can use to write on. But notice the surface underneath is not white. This time, it's green. And I'm going to show you why that's going to be helpful for us in a second. So here is how we make our light board. I'm going to take you back into screen sharing and show you what I'm going to do in OBS to build this from scratch. You could do this too. All right, so here's OBS. I'm going to go down to my video capture device, right click on filters. I'm going to go back to that add filter button. And this time, instead of going to color correction, I'm going to go one more filter above it to chroma key. Chroma key is going to be the magic that makes this work. You'll notice the moment I hit chroma key, that green just became invisible. I'm going to click close because basically I'm done here. I'm going to go back into my sources box, click add. Now I'm going to add my camera again. So I can add existing because I've already got my camera. That's my video capture device. So I'll click OK. Whoop, it's a bit too big, so I'm going to resize it just like you've seen me do in the past. Now it's resized. And now, see down here, there's like all these different things. I got video capture device and video capture device 2. I'm going to drag the first video capture device, which is my face, underneath capture device 2. Watch what happens. Now, you can see that there's something in front of me. That's the acrylic. You can see a little bit of glare from the windows out here in front of me. But everything that's green now becomes invisible. This is your free do-it-yourself light board. No joke, the way that I thought about this was, you know how Google will give you like recommended news stories? I saw a news story about a professor at USC who built her own whiteboard, or excuse me, light board with like glass panes and a wooden frame and stuff. And she got like 50,000 hits overnight or something like that. And I thought, wait a second, OBS could do that too. And this is how you do it. So it's just using a bit of green fabric. You could use a t-shirt, you could use construction paper, put your acrylic over top of it. And once you chroma key that out, it becomes invisible. So you're not actually looking at me right now. You're looking at the green fabric, but because it's invisible, it looks like you're looking at me. So, oh, let's see. I've got my little binder clip over there because I did a binder clip to keep the acrylic stuck onto the fabric to make sure it wouldn't slide around. So let's say I want to get rid of that. I want to crop everything a little bit more cleanly here. There we go. I can kind of crop it out. Poof, there we go. So now, if I take my marker, oh, I'm reacting the wrong way. Okay, there we go. So now I can write on myself. This is what a light board setup looks like. Now you'll notice that right out of the gate, it's a bit faded. And that's because the ink isn't completely opaque, right? It's a bit transparent. So what I want to do is I want to try to make this a bit more distinct for my students. One way I could do that is by actually going in and adding more ink, but I don't want to have to do that every single time. So instead, what I'm going to do is down here where I have video capture device 2, remember that's my phone, is I'm going to go back to that chroma key. So I right click on filters, and I go back to the chroma key. So now what I can do is I can adjust these levels in the chroma key. For example, I can make it more sensitive to green or less sensitive to green by adjusting similarity. I can adjust the smoothness, which changes the way the chroma key works at the edges. So there's really not a perfect recipe for this. You just go in and kind of like you did with the black and white, just play around a little bit. Play around with the contrast. See what works best for your room with your lighting. And you'll probably find something that you can live with. And there we go. It becomes a little bit more visible for you. So depending on your room, so what I would do is I'd probably take about maybe 5 minutes or so and play around with the sliders to see what I want. But it ends up being a nice, crisp bit of black ink right there. And you could bring in anything you wanted. I mean, I'm using writing at the moment, but I don't know, you're talking about paleontology. Bring in like your dinosaurs toys and have them like attack you on screen. I don't know, whatever, right? You can do anything you wanted to with the light board. Yeah. So really what we've been talking about today are a few different setups. So you have your whiteboard setup if that's what you want. You've also got a really refined whiteboard setup by adjusting the filters and the contrast, so you have a pure white background and nice crisp dark ink. But you can also throw in some green instead of white to make this a light board, so that any kind of writing or any kind of images that you put up or objects kind of show up floating over your face. So that's really 3 different setups in one, and we're just using the whiteboard setup. I'm really excited to see what kinds of things you folks come up with by mounting phones on the walls or taking it into the kitchen to show hands-on things or whatever other kinds of things. Every once in a while, this has become very handy because I can take my phone camera, go under the desk, and I can show my dog sleeping, because in the new world of classrooms, everybody has to share their dog. So that's also been very handy. Yeah. But for the most part, I think that's everything that I had planned to go through with you, all the resources, the PDF, the tutorial, the little extra spicy bonuses for those that are interested. So what questions, comments, clarifications, any stone left unturned can I turn for you? What can I do for you? All righties. Well, by all means, if anybody thinks of anything, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to talk shop. I'm really excited to see what kinds of cool ideas you all come up with, what kinds of new discoveries and innovations. So yeah, try it out, have fun with it. Yeah, thank you very much for coming out. I appreciate it.